Hello you, welcome to the Sex Clinic here at Belle Secrets. I'm Matt, you can find me at sexcoaching.london. This week we have a question and also I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens when you go to see a sex therapist. So firstly, I will answer the fantastic question. I have a mental health need and live in supported accommodation. I have trouble with using the internet. I'm okay with emails and stuff, but making accounts to begin with, I need support. My carers tell me that they aren't allowed to help me set up a profile so I can meet escorts using my own money. Can they do this? Now, I don't know where you're based, but in the UK, sex work is legal. And also we have a equality legislation called the Equality Act 2010. Now that Equality Act is actually very similar in the majority of Western countries. It's just called something slightly different, but it's pretty much the same legislation. So under that legislation, you have what's called a protected characteristic. Mental health, disability, sexual orientation, race, religion, etc. are what's called protected characteristics. Therefore, it is illegal to treat you differently because of your protected characteristics. And from a care and support point of view, your carers and support staff have to support you with your protected characteristics so that you can have access to society and services the same as somebody who wouldn't have those protected characteristics because they have that access anyway, right? And because they do that themselves, but you need support to do that. So no, they can't do that. They can't not support you with it. The problem with social care, quite frankly, and nursing, having somebody who's worked in both, is they have issues with sex. They find it very difficult to talk about sex with their clients, and also they very often misunderstand the law around sex work anyway because they think it's illegal. Oh, can't help you with that, it's illegal. It's absolute fucking bollocks because it's not. Please do check the country that you are living in because I don't know which one it is, about the sex work legality. If sex work itself, as in buying sex, selling sex, is illegal, yes, there would be an issue there, which is unfortunate. A lot of staff do kind of turn a blind eye to that and help their clients anyway, but just check that because unfortunately they probably wouldn't be able to support you with it officially, yeah? But if you're in a country where it is legal, they have to support you to do that. It's that simple. And it's not rocket science, is it? Setting up a profile and stuff. The other way of looking at it is from a safeguarding point of view. It's much safer for them to help you with that so that they know that you're seeing a reputable escort. Yeah, rather than somebody who set up a fake profile or whatever. Yeah, so to a certain degree, you're probably going to know more than they do, which is unfortunate. So it might be a little bit about explaining how that works if you're able to do that. Or maybe even printing off some of the legislation or keeping it very simple and saying to them, I've checked it out, it's perfectly legal in this country, so you do actually have to support me with it. Then the other thing, which you probably already know anyway, is just choosing your staff carefully, depending on where you are. I'm assuming there's a few staff that work around you or with you, and just finding out what their attitudes to sex is generally, what their awareness is around the law around sex, sexuality, sexual expression, the Equality Act, Mental Health Act, etc. Because they do all protect you, those laws protect you. And unfortunately, some staff don't know, which is quite bizarre in the job, yeah? So choose your staff, see how you go. If you don't get anywhere with those, I would take it to management. Unfortunately, management are usually the worst for not knowing what the sex work laws are. Okay, but that's okay because you're kind of pre-warned to that if that helps. And if that still doesn't work, you make a formal complaint to the head office of the company that's providing your care and you quote the Equality Act and also the equal right to access of services. Okay, so try that for now. That's a little bit of information which should be enough, and if not, get back to me, matt@bellsecretshow.com, and I can give you more information because there's a lot of information but you probably don't need all of it, but that is enough for now. I hope that helps. And just to reiterate, no, they can't do that, they're not doing the jobs properly, but approach it gently and then just remind them of their responsibilities. Okay, I hope that helps. Okay, so next up, I'm just going to say to you about what happens when you see a sex therapist, because a few people have asked us, what happens when you go and see a sex therapist? And quite frankly, because I work in it, I don't realise sometimes that people who don't have any experience of it might not know, okay? So I'm not actually a sex therapist, I'm a sex coach with general therapy training. So let me tell you the difference. A sex therapist will be somebody trained in psychosexual therapy, and they will be very much approaching it from that psychosexual, very specific way. So that's your psychological processes, sex issues, your sexuality, gender identity, all the rest of it. And they will address it from that point of view. So here's an example. You find your therapist online, you approach them, you make your appointment, you might have your free initial chat, or you'll just book the appointment. They will take a history. They'll ask you what the issue is now, what the history is around sex, what your childhood was like. That's usually a big question, what your childhood was like with regards to sex ed. Did your parents give you sex ed? What was your sex ed like at school? That kind of thing. They're also probably, depending on what issue you're presenting with, may look at childhood stuff around abuse, because sometimes if we're having sex problems in adult life, then sometimes it can be rooted in stuff that we may not have noticed. I'll give you an example actually. A pretty common one is people who feel guilty after masturbating. Quite often that will link back to something that they've forgotten about, like their parents walking in on the bedroom and they're catching them masturbating. That's quite a common one that people just forget, and then we can make that link from a sex therapy point of view. So sex therapy tends to look at the root cause, address what's going on, help the client find their own solutions. With psychosexual therapy specifically, they'll probably be coming in with solutions. They'll also be trained to a certain point in medical conditions that can affect sex. They're not doctors, but they will know when to refer you back to your doctor, or look at the emotional effect of a particular physical problem. That's it. With coaching is more in the moment. This is the issue. This is how we're going to address it. Practical application, goal setting, and solutions in the moment. Now, usually that is helpful. However, some coaches, no disrespect to coaches that aren't trained in therapy as well, but some coaches can miss the root causes. I have an issue with that. Yeah, I'm not saying you have to deep dive into your childhood all the time, not at all. In fact, I'm the opposite of that. Actually, do it when it's necessary. But you've got to look at something that might be a root cause, and you do need to address it. But if you just want to solution focused in the moment, that's usually what coaching is about. Therapy is more about looking at root causes and addressing it from that way. I hope that helps. So in a nutshell, you go and see a therapist. They're going to take a background, look at what's going on for you now, and probably make links with whatever information you've given them, and then kind of package it for you, if you like, and present it to you. Well, this is what I'm seeing. Do you think this might be worth addressing? That's how it really works, yeah? And then with coaching, it's a lot more kind of staged. We do this at this point, this at this point, okay? That's a definition of therapy and coaching in a very simple way. I'm smiling because I don't really work in that way, not in either ways, really. I'm more intuitive. I work very much with the energy that's going on in people's bodies. I'm what's called clairsentient, so I can feel the blockages in people's systems. So then I'll address the coaching and therapy techniques really after I've identified what the blockages are. Quite frankly, it's a bit quicker. In fact, it's a lot quicker actually. Sometimes we can do it in one session. It depends on the client. Don't misunderstand me. If somebody has some deep rooted childhood abuse, PTSD, etc., you can't work in that way. I do it much more slowly. Okay, I hope that helps. I will revisit this at a later date because different therapists work differently, but that's just one example of what happens in a therapy and or coaching session. I hope that helps. This has been the Sex Clinic for this week. Lots of love. Do pop me your question, matt@bellsecretshow.com, and you can also visit me at sexcoaching.london. I work internationally online, and you can book your one-to-one session with moi. Lots of love. Bye for now.